But they were just too wonderful to be true. And after the wall came down, I think 13 people from here went to check out if that was indeed true. Now, I didn't know you were coming here. Tell them if it was. If it was true.
It's true.
Where? Did you meet your husband here?
I met my husband. Oh yeah, that's a good story. I finally got my freedom. And I was never going to get married. Why should I give away that precious freedom for just some guy? But when the right guy came along, I forgot all about it. That's just as I forget my being vegetarian when you put a German sausage in front of me.
When exactly did the Berlin Wall go up?
For that?
When did the Berlin Wall go up?
On 19th of August, 61. And I left in 60. So pretty much in time.
Uta, how old were you when you left?
I think 23. Oh, and now here, I was a trained physical therapist. And when I wanted to work here as a physical therapist, they were so convinced that I was a communistic spy. Now, I think that was just as if nowadays I would walk into the regional hospital next door here and say, I want to work for you, walking in with a burqa. I said, well, should we employ her? No, rather not. So I had quite a hard time. Finding a job, and I jobbed around different things, and best job was cleaning offices. I loved the cleaning offices at night. How I could do that at night and not be afraid to walk home and walk through the cities of, through the streets of wherever that was, I don't know, but times must have been very different then. And no, I couldn't be a physical therapist. And I said, excuse me.
When you mentioned, you spent that year at the mansion, and this is one of the stories I don't know, so I'm curious about this. There you had sort of a protected environment. People were taking care of you, you could teach, you could do the rest.
Yeah.
But leaving there, after that year, there's the courage to go out and do something. You probably learned some English on your own at that point?
Oh, that was part of the deal.
Right. So
while I was teaching German, I would learn English.
Where did you go?
Yeah.
Where did you go when you left the mansion? What was your next step?
Oh, that was a really exciting thing. I mean, this was exciting in its own way. But the real exciting thing was, find your way on your own. And
that's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
What did you do?
Well, one thing I did was I worked in a family. It was a family. How I found it, I don't know. Who had a daughter, maybe in her 30s, 40s, with multiple sclerosis. And I would take care of her and give her physical therapy on the side. And then that office cleaning job, which I loved because it was just so peaceful. And I went through all these different offices. The worst thing of that office job was that people were smoking and throwing their coffee, half-empty coffee cups on top of the smoke of their cigarettes. But that was a terrible smell. But otherwise it was very fun and had got some money. And
Mike?
Oh, Mike! Yeah, Mike. Wonderful Mike. Really, I mean that in the full bottom of my heart.
When did you meet him?
Yeah. Here is a good part.
Worthy.
Finally, he left. He had a wanderlust too. So he left Allentown area, Breiningsville, to work for Boeing in Seattle. And we had been friends for a long time in a so-called international club. And really, we international people had very little in common with our American counterparts of the same age, because they had kids already and houses and, I don't know houses, but apartments, and they were totally different. And we had found each other somehow. Most of the girls were household help. Nowadays it's called au pairs. And they usually, the Wednesday afternoon was their time off. And then there were other exchange students and exchange engineers and exchange was a company in Reading called Gilbert Associates, and they were building dams somewhere in Africa and other things in India, or training engineers too. And we would meet in each other's apartment every Wednesday night, and a different nationality would cook. It was a wonderful time. This is what you want to hear, a wonderful time. And when one of us would leave, then the next guy would just walk right into that apartment with everything set up already. And Mike and I were part of that group. And then Mike got the Wanderlust, and he went to Seattle, and called to me from there and mentioned the names of various women. And I thought, oh my gosh, I do not want to lose, I don't want to get married, but I don't want to lose him. So, and I, meanwhile, had found a job with children, which I loved very much, and tears running down my face. I quit that job and went to Seattle to get married. Heaven forbid, get married. Ay, ay, ay. And a pastor that we were friends with said, you know, it's okay to elope and all of that, but just be aware that there is nobody who would counsel you or hold your hand or anything. You just have each other. But it worked out fine. So, oh yeah, we went to get married, went to a marriage counselor. And he said, well, he talked to me, and he said, well, I want to talk to your intended, and then I want to talk to both of you. So good. So I dragged him there, not really, it was sure. And as I was sitting in the waiting room, I hear him laugh and laugh out loud, right through the door. And finally they come out all laughing too, and said, oh, you don't need a third session. And I like that old man. And we said, well, could we paid now, could we use that third session that you marry us? I know that he could marry us, which he did. And in that marriage ceremony, attended by two co-workers, that's the only people we really knew, and he read paragraphs from Krishnamurti, which I had never heard of. But that fits in with that mansion thing again, you know, that Paul Karras was just so open-minded and was proposing things like that and everybody. And also supporting the Parliament of World Religions. That everybody, if all the world religions get to know each other and respect each other, then the world would have people more chances. Okay, David.
Did you come directly from Seattle to Scranton then?
I know! I forget all these things. Neither one of us wanted to get married. But we did. But then we were so happy that we did. He quit his job, and I had quit mine already. And we toured first his country, towards the desert states and up and down. Oh, and jobs were plentiful and plentiful. I could walk in the hospital. By then, I was the first physical therapist, foreign trained, ever registered, no, ever allowed or registered and certified to practice in Pennsylvania. I'm very proud of that, because other people would have had that chance, but for them, they were married and had kids and so, and for me, it was really a matter of life of death, kind of. Factory work or being a professional. So, if I think of the building where I had my education in physical therapy, would be just, how could you learn anything in there? And when that big physical therapy building was coming up here on the corner, I said, well, tell me about something that's real new and too different, that you need such a big tower. And they told me that they have a walkway there with all kind of different surfaces to walk on. Cobblestone and pebbles and sand and that the people, amputees and so, would learn to navigate that. Now we had this in our little tiny outstation hospital where our physical therapy school was located, outdoors and in a beautiful woodland setting. And it was there because in case the university and the university hospital in Jena would be bombed, and they had a place to bring their patients. Okay.
Did you say? Did you tell about Michael? He was the first one to come to Scranton. Did you tell him?
Oh. I mean, poor people. I mean, it just goes on and on.
Let that be the end.
Yeah. So, jobs, plentiful. I could walk into any hospital. They would take me, be happy I come. Mike had signed up with something, as an engineer, with something akin to manpower. And wherever someone needed engineering of some kind, could apply to that place, a nationwide network, and they would look for someone to take their job. And Michael, whoever we were, would call that number, and if they had a job for him, they would answer. If they didn't answer, he knew they didn't have a job. But usually they did answer. And so one station we stopped and worked for a couple of weeks was Salt Lake City. And that was a wonderful assignment. Oh, we had such a good time in Salt Lake City. And then we enjoyed ourselves and looked at the map that I should now introduce him to my family in Germany. At that time, the dollar was 4 to 1. 4 West German marks for $1. So we were the rich, ugly Americans. We tried to not be ugly, but we had lots and lots of money. And that was just so wonderful how we stopped at a little telephone booth in the middle of nowhere, really in the desert somewhere, Nevada or what, and asked and called an automobile dealer in Germany that we would want a VW bus. And, yeah, sure, how many are you coming, and we'll get it ready. So we went back to Allentown, and as much as we enjoyed the West, we thought it was wonderful coming, see Pennsylvania farms, the greenery and the painted barns, and so much in contrast to the West. And then we took off and, yeah, went to Germany, all my family was just so happy that I was not alone anymore in that big, ugly country of America, that I had someone to take care of me. So and then we looked at the map, and he says, oh, if we go that far to East Germany, we might just as well visit my family in what was then Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia, now being Slovakia and Serbia. And we went there, and now East Germany first, and wherever we went, they had a little get-together and celebrated Uta being taken care of now. And then we went a long time. Yeah, we had a cousin, a Czechoslovak cousin in Karlovy, which was not far, and we would meet there, and he would guide us to his family in my mother-in-law's hometown. Also a little tiny town by the name of Spišská Běla, on the foot of the tips of the tips. Oh, I don't know. Carpathians. And when we got there, the whole street was full of people crying that finally, for joy, that finally the Americans had remembered them and come to see them. And they were so poor. I've never seen such poverty. Not even down south with my voter registration thing. But they were so full of heart and love, and they could not do enough for us. And we had our brand new car there, and they were going to show us the Carpathian Mountains nearby. And so who could go in that little bus? And first who is most closely related, and the next, and the next, and the next. And finally it was all filled, and the kids standing there, oh, so sad, and Mike says, get them all in. And so they were sitting on top of each other and singing, and it was just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And when we finally had to leave, when Mike got up from that next morning and looked out the window, and here was a little pig which we had seen the night before with a lantern that had something wrong with its legs, and so it was hanging by those crooked legs and being slaughtered in our honor. And when we finally left, they made sandwiches, piles and piles of sandwiches. And when we drove on then with our vehicle with a sliding door. What an excitement, that sliding door. And whenever we stopped, there were a wall of people around that wanted to see that sliding door. And whenever we stopped on the street for some reason, people would just come in. They would just sit down. I mean, we didn't know the language much, but they were walking this way, and we were driving that way. Well, sure, if they go with us, they didn't have to walk that far. And which was very good, because now we could get rid of all our sandwiches. And then we went on to what now is Serbia. And there was a very different story. And we hardly want to tell it, but there were just two old ladies who would somehow collect old clothing, clean them, and make children's clothes out of them in order to stay over water. And their whole family had been killed. And the one story that I remember was that all the German men were lined up by a mass grave, and they were shot one by one. And one of the partisans, the Yugoslav partisans, said, no, not this one one was, he told me my grade. He's a good man. He was one of Michael's relatives. And they let him go. And he came home, and he found his wife slain, and his son hung himself in hole. And I keep thinking that this man would have been better in the mass grave. What happened to him, I don't know. But what saved the family in Slovakia was that they were just as German as these other, but they had changed their name from Lorenz to Lorenchik. And that's what saved them. And the Dreers, they were still very obviously German, and that's how they got. Of course, there are many, many stories. And for which reason I thank Daddy for asking for me to tell my story, because people who have personally gone through these horrors, they cannot talk about it. They take their stories with them, as soldiers do into their graves, as soldiers do, or many other people who just cannot. I can see that. Even as I was preparing for this talk here, I felt how it affected me emotionally. Even so, I was just an innocent bystander, a little kid, just seeing what was going on. But that was enough to make me a very convinced pacifist, which, together with Beth back here, we are kind of very few people. Oh yeah, here. That's a couple of them.
What was the strangest encounter you had here when you came to America? What was the strangest custom here in America that you found weird? And also, did your parents ever come here to America to visit you?
These are all loaded questions. I'll start out with my parents. I had a brother who was invited by one of the other relatives. And he was here 2 years before I came. And he actually was the one to pick me up from the boat. And someone asked me as I was going through the customs, they said, "Are you going to be picked up or what?" And yes, I am. And they said, "By whom?" "My brother." "Did you see him?" "Yes." And so he said, "Show him to me." And so we went to the side of the ship and looked way, way down, and I waved to him. And I waved, and he waved back and said, "Okay, goodbye." And I think that was for my own protection. That no, I wouldn't be sold somewhere or what, being an obvious stranger coming there. And this very brother, very tragically, got married, had 3 kids, and at age 40 died very suddenly of pancreatic cancer. And it was a terrible, terrible thing. And with those little kids and new immigrants, all of us. And it was Khrushchev and Kennedy years. And it was his dying wish that he would like to see his parents again. But there was no way and no way. But, such craziness. The West Germans did not acknowledge East Germany. And in East Germany, the East Germans were automatically West Germans. They were Germans. And the East Germans was not recognized. So a very enterprising aunt in West Germany. My parents were 65 by then. When you were 65, you can travel to the West. And she exchanged, had it all prepared, exchanged their East German passports to a West German passport, had it all arranged to get an American visa, and they came to visit the family, even though they never were able to see their son anymore. But at least they got to meet the grandkids and so on. And what was the other question?
What was the strangest
Oh,
custom?
the strangest. Well, even this very wonderful people in that mansion in Illinois, they treated me wonderfully. I mean, they teach me English and let me go to school and so. But a family friend was going to visit me, and he came from several hours trip from Canada, and they wouldn't let him in. That was that Cold War fear. You know, I mean, we trusted that girl because she was related a little bit, and so, but some strange guy, no, he couldn't. So they did not let him in. But I mean, I could meet with him outdoors. And the last day before he was leaving, he was some leftover breakfast, and he could come in and finish up the breakfast. I thought that was really strange.